Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dark Phoenix Gaming, and welcome to my end of the year list thing. This being my top 10 games of 2022. Now, before we dive into this list, there's a couple of caveats I need to list off because I know some people will be quite bothered by the way I've done my list, and, well, to be perfectly honest, I don't give a damn. This is my list. I do what I want. And for me, top 10 games of X year, I've always done this being the top 10 games that I played that year and enjoyed. There's nothing more to it than that. They don't have to have come out in that particular year. And so, with that in mind, I'm just going to start us off at number 10, Valheim, which I know got a big major updatey type thing this year with the release of the Mistlands update, aka patch 0.212.7. And yes, I have Steam open and I'm reading this stuff off there, sue me. Yeah, it got a big update patch this year, but it actually released last year. Technically, anyways. Valheim is what I consider to be a case study in the way you do early access right, because at least when I started playing it, I don't know how it was for when it originally came out, but it had a lot of content already. There were plenty of things to do, there was stuff to explore, bosses to fight, and it felt fun to play and rewarding. Unlike games like 7 Days to Die, which are fun in bursts, sure, but long term there's not a whole lot to do. It's not like that. This is just one of those games that I don't play it all the time, because there's only one game I've ever played consistently all the time, and we'll get to that later. But it consistently has me coming back to see what they've added, just see what more there is to it now. Which, to me, is the mark of a really great game. If you can pull an indecisive person like me, who doesn't keep playing the same game repeatedly very often, back to your game again and again, then you've got a winner formula. And to be perfectly honest, I can't wait to see where Valheim goes in the future. So, that's my number 10. Moving on to number 9, we have The Sims 3. Yes, The Sims 3. You might not be aware of this because it's been a couple of years since I've done the Sims content on the channel, but I'm a big lover of simulation type games. And the whole life simmer thing in The Sims, I really enjoy. I really do. In fact, as of this moment, I have about 140 hours in The Sims 3. Compared to, I don't know what it is in The Sims 4, like 10 or something? Yeah, The Sims 4 just did not hook me. It was boring, there was not enough to do, they'd cut out an insane number of features, and were selling stuff that in The Sims 3 had been a single expansion as 2 or 3 separate expansions. I just was not a fan of The Sims 4, so I came straight back to Sims 3. And here's something else you may also find interesting. With The Sims 3, I have never installed a single mod. I've only ever played vanilla. And yet, it still managed to grab on and hook me quite thoroughly. And I just love all the stuff you can do in the game, even if it's just me creating a story and seeing how things go for my Sims for just like one generation, or until my Sim has a kid and they're grown up or something. I have all the options in the world I need to see how things unfold, and I love that. It's just one of those games that, again, hooks me in and makes me want to continue playing, even if I'm not one to repeatedly play one game over and over very much. There's just something about Sims 3 that I find to be just so special. Now, I've heard some people say that it's not as good as Sims 1 or Sims 2 from their perspective, which I'm sure they have their reasons for that, but as I have never played either of those games just yet, this is my number one for the moment. Moving on to number 8, we have Terraria, which is honestly the game on this list that I've played the least of, but just everything about it, I just have so much fun just messing around in Terraria. I just really enjoy just screwing around and seeing what happens next. Just all the exploration and crafting and everything, and I love a good crafting system in the game, I can't deny it. Being able to make shit on my own, like that, just out of the resources I have, I really appreciate things like that. And the sandbox creativity bit is great. I love it. Again, it's just how many options I have and how much there is to do. And this is just from me personally, but the fact that Terraria is only 650 megabytes on my hard drive even today, after all the updates it has to have gotten by now, because I didn't really start playing Terraria until last year. I really did not. But I'm having so much fun with it. I can't wait to see what other quirky little features I discover about it in the future. Number 7. Darkest Dungeon. Now, you may remember, back a couple of years ago, I did a stream series of Darkest Dungeon that was, to put it mildly, an unmitigated disaster. Everyone died repeatedly, and the whole thing fell apart. In fact, that was 4 years ago. No, actually. But I've always had Darkest Dungeon on my hard drive for the most part, and I play it on and off here and there, and it's very enjoyable. I just really have a lot of fun with it. And the fact that I can't save scum and just go back and load up my old saves to undo my screw-ups and have to live with everything, I think is a very cool narrative touch. I really do like it. And plus, all the systems just work together so incredibly well. Darkest Dungeon, I love you. And no, I'm not about to ask the game if it will marry me. Do not be absurd. Darkest Dungeon 2 is apparently an Epic exclusive right now, but you can bet your bottom dollar when that thing comes to Steam or GOG or both, I am going to play it. And the turn-based thing is a lot of fun too, because it's very strategic in how you have to manage your party members and everything, and the strategy elements of it just blend together so incredibly well with the whole management thing. It adds some nice touches that really enhance what's already there. Now, on to number 6, Bloodborne. Yeah. So, as you may know, if you follow my Discord or Twitter, I got a PlayStation 5 earlier this year, which means I can start checking out some of the PlayStation games now, because up until this point, the last Sony console I owned, which is one I still own as it happens, is a PS2 that I've had since the early to mid-2000s sometime. As a result, all of my gaming up to this point has been on mostly Xbox or PC, because those are what I've had to play games on. And I've just been going a little bit crazy checking out PlayStation games, and actually grabbed a PS Plus subscription so that I could get some of the free ones off of there. More to the point, I'd seen a couple of Let's Plays of Bloodborne and it looked really interesting, so I wanted to give it a shot. And it's been very fun so far. The fact that it sort of encourages you to be more aggressive and seems to buck the trend of the whole pattern recognition and cautiously dodging around enemy attacks, and encourages you to just get stuck in and start attacking, is really kind of nice. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Dark Souls and the whole dodge around attacks and when there's an opening thing they have, but sometimes I just want something a little different, and Bloodborne provided that. Number 5, Victoria 2. Yeah. In the year where Victoria 3 came out, I'm putting Victoria 2 on my list. I know. But I did actually play Victoria 3. In fact, I bought it on release, and while I found it quite enjoyable and rather fun, it just didn't hook me in the way other Paradox games have done. Heck, even Imperator Rome I found rather compelling and enjoyable to play, but there was just something about Victoria 3 that's not quite there yet. Victoria 2, on the other hand, as complicated and as much of a massive freaking head-scratcher as it is to actually play and understand the systems, just feels more compelling. I have more fun figuring it out, even if I don't know what I'm doing a lot of the time. And I do not understand Victoria 2's economic system in the slightest, let's be clear. I did one campaign in it as Spain back in 2014-2015 that ended in a sort of middling way with me having a lot of territory, but being a secondary power. And Victoria 3, like I said, I'm just not enjoying it as much. Even with my limited understanding, Vicky 2 is still my preferred game of the two of them, and I look forward to learning it more to become more competent at it. Yes, in a lot of ways, I'm kind of drifting towards the older Paradox games rather than the new ones, though I do still prefer some of the newer ones. I really do. Anyways, in at number 4, we have Stellaris. Yeah, that's right, we're getting a bunch of Paradox Grand Strategy games on this list that did not come out this year. Deal with it. Yeah, Stellaris, as you might know, has been on my last 2 lists, so this is a pretty consistent entry, and I continue to enjoy it. Now, I don't play Stellaris as much as I used to, just because I have so many other games. I don't really have time for a full campaign of Stellaris anymore, which the last one, full campaign, was back around the Corporations expansion, which, when was that again? Remember, it's been at least a couple of years, I think. Yeah, MechCore was in 2019, so that was the last time I did a full campaign. Wait. No, it wasn't. I tell a lie. That was... timetables mixed up again. No, it was. Yeah, because there was another minor expansion around the same time that I did a full campaign for, Ancient Relics, and I sort of got the timetables mixed up, but yeah. I don't play Stellaris as much as I used to, just because there's a bunch of other games that I'm playing through at the moment that I'm more invested in finishing than doing another game of Stellaris. Much as I love it, like with all the Paradox games, the emergent storytelling and just being able to create your own narrative, that sort of thing is really my jam as far as strategy games go, and I love how things can unfold completely differently in 2 different campaigns. Case in point, my first ever game of Stellaris on release day, I ended up sandwiched between an aggressive xenophobic empire of bugs and a border and a fallen empire who just... This was one of the don't touch our borders ones, and ended up having to spend all my money on the Navy and none to build up my infrastructure so that I could conquer the xenophobic non-fallen empire and actually have room to expand. Whereas the next campaign, it was basically entirely peace-loving hippies, so I barely had to spend anything on my military. It was glorious. Though, to be honest, I prefer the former just because I'm a bit of a warmongering asshole in Stellaris games. Though, despite saying that, I've never actually finished any of the Purge the Galaxy runs, because they are so goddamn hard. Anyways, Stellaris still remains one of my favorite games, even if I don't play it as much as I used to. And continuing on with the Paradox theme in my list, we have number 3, Crusader Kings 2. You may recall that on my last list, I had Crusader Kings 3, and I still think it's a very good game. I still really enjoy it. And there are, in fact, some aspects of it that I think are better than how they're done in Crusader Kings 2, like the Peasant Uprising system in CK3, I think is demonstrably superior to the one in CK2 where you just generate random whack-a-mole rebels. Peasant leader Bob has led the 5,987th Orthodox uprising against you, comes to mind. As opposed to the peasants being a faction that, if they're too dissatisfied, will lead a rebellion against you and sort of snowball their numbers Spartacus style. I really prefer the CK3 system, but in general, I just find the overall narrative and the options you have as a whole as your way to interact with the world in CK2 to be preferable, even if I like a lot of things. In Crusader Kings 3, there's just something about 2 that keeps me coming back. It feels like narratively and in the sense of the emergent storytelling side, it's a lot more flexible. Plus, the mods. Crusader Kings 2, I tend to play pretty heavily modded, and just thanks to it having been around longer, there are a lot more readily available and high-quality mods for it than there are for Crusader Kings 3. Now, saying that, there's a lot of mods for 3 that I really enjoy and honestly can prefer, and I'm looking forward to sinking my teeth into, like the Elder Kings 2 mod that I'm really enjoying so far and look forward to playing more with, but I just find there's something about CK2 that even with all the expansions for 3 so far, which, to be honest, some of the stuff in those expansions, it doesn't seem like the part they're charging for is actually worth it. Even if it is largely not core systems or anything, yet, thankfully. Even with that, Crusader Kings 2, in a lot of ways, I just prefer it. And I know personal preference isn't a great way to judge stuff like that, but this is my list after all. And with that, we can move on to number 2. And in at number 2, we have Factorio. I only recently really started playing Factorio in any real sense. I'd sort of poke my nose into it on and off over the past couple of years. But this year I really started playing it and enjoying it. Just learning the systems has been an absolute joy. Being able to automate my power delivery system, as simple as that may sound to Factorio veterans, so that I'm not carrying coal to my power plants repeatedly. Being able to automate that whole system and just spread out my conveyor belts and everything and just try to find the best, most efficient way to optimize everything. It's just so enjoyable. Even if mine do tend to become conveyor belt hell after a while. Just being able to build stuff and find the right positions and ways to optimize my delivery of resources so I can make what I need and keep everything flowing as it has to be. It's so much fun. And the addition of actually having to fight enemies and it not just being a peaceful building game, I think adds so much dynamic to it. And I really love that. It's honestly one of my favorite of the factory building simulator type games I've ever played. I've played at least a handful of those. But Factorio is one of my favorites. And now, before we get to number 1, I have a few honorable mentions for games that, for whatever reason, did not make the final list, but I feel like are worth mentioning here. Honorable mention number 1 is Dwarf Fortress, which the Steam version came out this year, so by the criteria of it was released this year, it definitely qualifies. But the thing is, I haven't played enough Dwarf Fortress to know the game well enough to really talk about it, so it would feel wrong to put it on this list, because I've not even played 3 hours of Dwarf Fortress yet. I own it, as I said, and I have been playing around with it quite a bit, but I haven't played enough of it to know the game well enough to really make a mention. Honorable mention number 2 goes to Victoria 3, which, as I said before, is just not hooking me in the same way Victoria 2 is right now. Now, don't get me wrong, it feels like the game has potential, but I don't think it's there yet. It feels rather undercooked, let's just say. Even in comparison to your typical Paradox game on release, it feels undercooked, so I just couldn't justify putting it on this list. Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord is our next honorable mention, and with this one, the last time I played it, if I'm being totally honest, was when it was still in early access. I haven't played it since the full release. Not really. I've loaded up and fought like 1 or 2 basic battles and done the tutorial again. That's it. I really can't justify putting it on the list given that I don't really understand any of the mechanical changes that have taken place since just yet. So it stays off the list for now. Despite the fact that by the technical definition of not in early access anymore, it did release this year. But I don't feel like I can justify putting it on this list. Next in our list of honorable mentions, we have Solasta, Crown of the Magister. Or as I like to call it, Dungeons & Dragons, the video game. Because that's really what it feels like. It feels like a Dungeons & Dragons simulation in video game form. And this is another one where my reasoning is I've not played enough to have an opinion yet, because I only very recently started to play this game. As such, I don't really have a strong enough feel for it to be able to talk about it and have an opinion I feel is worth sharing on this one. So it stays in the honorable mentions. Next on that list of honorable mentions, Pillars of Eternity 2, which I've watched a couple of Let's Plays for. I've seen some opinions on this that other people have, but I've always felt like judging a product you have not experienced by other people's opinions is not a very good idea. As you're just spouting someone else's view and expressing it as if it was your own. And Pillars of Eternity 2, despite owning it and all its DLC on Steam, I have yet to play. In fact, I have yet to even install. it's 50 gigabytes, for God's sake. I don't have very good internet, so that's gonna take me a while. When I do decide to finally download and play it, that will take me at least a couple of days. I simply have not gotten around to it yet, so it can't go on the list, since I have not played it. Next is another one that gets the I've played this, but not enough to really have a significant opinion on it just yet, and that is Pathfinder Kingmaker, which I started doing a proper playthrough of very recently. In fact, just before Christmas. As a result, I have simply not played enough of this game to know it that well. And I don't feel like it would be fair to put it on the list above things I have played and know I enjoy. And next, we have Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, this is actually one I got last year. Because last year, I did actually buy a Nintendo Switch. And I have been playing some games on it that I've really been enjoying. Including Breath of the Wild. But I don't have a lot of time for gaming on the Switch compared to other platforms like PC, because I have to actually dig it out of my drawers and charge it and everything. Anyway, as a result, I've not finished Breath of the Wild yet, or really gotten all that far. I want to, and I very much plan to finish the game very soon. Or at least play it some more thoroughly and give it some love, and I'm hoping I'll be able to put it on the 2023 Games of the Year list, but it can't go on this one because I've just not played enough of it to give it a fair shake. The next honorable mention goes to Europa Universalis 4, which, till Stellaris, and Europa Universalis 4, let's get back on track here for a second, is my third most played game of all time on Steam, just behind Stellaris. I've played about 700 hours of it total. But the thing is, I actually played more of it back around the time of the Art of War, I think it was, expansion. Sorry, EU4 has a lot of expansions. It's a very old game by our standards and came out in 2013. Meaning it's about 12 years old now. Still a couple of set expansions I do not own, but I do actually have the majority of the expansions, believe it or not. Because I started this right when I got the game, 2015-ish. There weren't actually a lot of expansions, so I just got them all. That's the long and short of it anyways. As a result, I've just sort of been getting them as they come out for the most part, which makes it less of an expense than grabbing them all at once. But yeah, the time that I was really playing this game was actually, no, it was around the time of Mare Nostrum and Rights of Man, so that's in 2016. And I'd sort of briefly come back when every expansion released, but I've been playing other Paradox games a lot more than EU4, and I haven't played it in so long that I don't really understand how a lot of the mechanics have changed. So that would be a problem, as I couldn't really give I couldn't really consider it fair to put it as a numbered item on this list, given the fact that I don't really have a reasonable understanding of how it's different from when I used to play it regularly. So, into the honorable mentions it goes. Next is Guild Wars 2. Now, this is a game that I used to play a whole lot. In fact, I have an incomplete Let's Play of Guild Wars 2 that covers about the first 30 levels from back in 2015, 2016-ish, that I canceled just because parts of the game were starting to frustrate me. Now, I went back and gave it another go without the preconceptions that I'd had before about how these annoying parts were bad, and I found it actually surprisingly enjoyable. But because it's been so long and as I've hardly played it in the meantime, I didn't consider it fair to put it on my list before I'd had a chance to properly experience the game again. Hence why it's here. Next is EverQuest, believe it or not, which I started playing around with just because I sort of wanted to check it out. I follow a lot of YouTube channels that talk about old games, and EverQuest comes up a lot in them. And they kept singing its praises so much that I wanted to see what the fuss was all about, so I loaded it up and started playing through the tutorial. I've not gotten further than that yet. I'm enjoying it so far, but I really couldn't put it on the top list. But I felt it deserved a mention. Next on the list is Star Sector. Oh, Star Sector, Star Sector, Star Sector. This is a game that I play a lot of, believe it or not. Just not consistently. The best way I can describe it is, it's like Mount & Blade Warband in space. You start out with a small fleet of ships that you control. You go off and do missions to make money, upgrade your fleet, hire more people, and so on. It's just such an incredibly deep game that I haven't even scratched the surface. Given the fact that I haven't fought anything more or powerful than a band of pirates who managed to get the jump on me in this game, it did not feel like something I could legitimately put on this list. Plus, there's the fact that I played it a lot less than I did last year. Is also a factor. Next on my honorable mentions list, and I know the honorable mentions are quite long this year, but there's only 3 of them left, so bear with me. Next is Stardew Valley. A game that, once again, I've played more in previous years than in this one. Because I've played a teensy tiny bit of it this year, and it's a very fun, relaxing game that I enjoy loading into when I just feel like chilling out for a little bit and not really having to worry about complex game mechanics or the fate of the universe. But I've not gotten very far into it. I haven't beat the story or anything, even the one time. So, given how I haven't got that far into the game, I had to decide that it could not go on this list. Because I just didn't have enough experience to be able to talk about it properly. Next on my list of honorable mentions is Chrono Trigger. Yes, really. I've owned the Steam port of Chrono Trigger for a while now, actually. And I know it came out in 2018, but last year was really the only time that I really play it. And it's been a lot of fun. The battle system and the music in particular are just amazing. I cannot help but love those. And just all the characters seem great so far. Now, granted, I haven't played too far into the game, which is why it's not on this list. It doesn't seem fair to talk about it and grant it a top 10 games list when I've only gotten into the part where you travel into the future so far. Now, I've been very careful to avoid spoilers from people on this lately. I know Chrono Trigger is so out there in pop culture that everyone will spoil the hell out of it if they get the opportunity. Because they don't consider it a spoiler, given it originally came out in the 1980s, I think. But I've not played this that would be why I'm avoiding those, because long-term spoilers, where I get the spoiler and then it's a long time until I experience the thing that was spoiled, I'll usually manage to forget it, but given that this is a current playthrough I'm doing right now, that would not be the case. And now, the final item on my list of honorable mentions is Total War Warhammer 3, which is on this list for a very simple reason. I simply do not own the game. I've not bought it yet. Because so far the cheapest has been on sales, $45. It seems like a pretty good game, don't get me wrong, but Total War games, I'm just not that consistent about finishing campaigns, so I've not gotten around to buying it yet. I just have not. I want to, and I definitely will, because that massive campaign, the combined map of all 3 games put together, is just waiting there, begging me to do it, but there's other things I'm more into playing right now. And that will do it for our honorable mentions. So, with that out of the way, it is time for us to finally talk about my number 1 game of the year. And my top game for the year of our Lord 2022 is Final Fantasy XIV. And you can say that makes me a weeb if you want, I don't fucking care. This is quite possibly the best video game I have ever played. And I've heard some people criticize parts of it, saying the story never gets better and they're literally just info dumping you the whole time. Those people are fucking morons who don't know what they're talking about. Yes, I'm saying it right now. I love this game. It is my favorite. I started playing Final Fantasy XIV back in very early 2021. And it wasn't that long ago that I reached completion of the main story quest as it currently is. More to that point, I've been leveling basically all the classes to the point where I've got them leveled enough that I think I can talk about all the various mechanics and roles quite well, because I've done all of the things as far as that's concerned. Tanking, healer, DPS, I've done them all. Granted, as the healer I haven't done at max level, but who cares? Anyways, Final Fantasy XIV, the thing I love about it is the story, because this is a story-focused game. And I think Jesse Cox put it best in his Final Fantasy XIV versus WoW video, which you should really go and watch, link in the description. World of Warcraft is an MMORPG, and Final Fantasy XIV is an RPG MMO, which I think is really the best way to describe it. If you just took all of the MMO things and completely removed them for 14, you would still have a complete and functional game. Because the story is the best part. It's why I keep playing this game. The story and all the experiences you get from story and camaraderie with other players. I mean, there's the hard content that comes with MMOs, raids and stuff that you can do if you want, but you never feel like you have to. It's there if you want. And other than that, the community is just incredible. And they're just so friendly too. And I've had, I think, one bad experience with another player in the entire time, which was just someone telling me to hurry up when I'd had to stop and do something in real life. But let me give you a specific example of how 2 times I've had great community experiences in this game. So, I was doing this one open world battle as part of the main story, just after you finish A Realm Reborn. It's a primary storyline. I was doing one of the battles as part of the patch content. I was at the recommended level and items and everything, but I was just having difficulty downing some of the enemies because I couldn't kill them before they took me down. Well, all three of them anyway, so I go into general chat, basically type, hey, I'm having trouble with this fight here, could someone come and help me out? Within 2 minutes, I have a healer there, or helping me clear that fight. No fuss or anything, I just ask for help and I get it. That's the more conservative example. Then, on the second one, I'm in Gridania, one of the main hub cities, just sort of hanging out. Well, no, not in Gridania, I'm near Gridania. I'm hanging out by the trainer for my white mage job, just doing random dungeons to level up that job so that I can finish the quests up to 50. And some player wanders by and just offers to make me a full set of level 50 gear. Totally free. They don't ask for any money or anything. They just offer me a set of level 50 gear because they feel like being nice. That's the kind of thing you can just see happen sometimes, and it's so wonderful. And just the experiences like that are so great, and I know a lot of people don't really get into this sort of thing, but I really enjoy the lore and all the little bits of narrative you can find on the side if you just go looking for them. Now, just to be clear, I am not saying FF14 is a perfect game. It has issues, and there are points, especially early on in the main story, when I would just bitch about it to no end because there's some parts that just seem to drag on for too long. And I think about what they could cut to make that not the case. But even so, it's still my favorite game. And I imagine it will probably remain my favorite game for some time yet. Because any game that wants to dethrone Final Fantasy XIV for me has got a hell of a mountain to climb. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, that'll do it for my top 10 games list. Now, there are certainly other games that I could have included in the honorable mentions, but I didn't want this to go on too long. Which, saying that, and looking at my recording for Audacity, this has already gone for over 50 minutes, because I tend to ramble about stuff I like, you may have noticed. I tend to ramble. In any case, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this particular listicle, and I will catch you next time. So long for now, everybody. So long for now.